Historian Frank Dickiter estimates 45 million starved to death. For a grim comparison point, the total number of dead in the whole of World War I was around 20 million. So
that was more than double the amount of people who died in World War I. This was a suggestion by me, so I'm doing it because I'm trying to get through all my suggestions right now.
Saying behind every great man is a great woman. Well, it also applies to men who are the exact opposite of great. Jiang was the fourth wife of Chairman Mao Zedong, the man who oversaw one of history's deadliest regimes. But rather than merely supporting her husband, Jiang...
Deadliest? No. Isn't it the deadliest regime? Right? Because I think Mao was the one who killed the most people, right? But to be fair though, this is China. China's always been populated heavily throughout history. So usually whenever I see big numbers of deaths coming out from that region, it doesn't really shock me, right? What you really need to look at is the ratio, right? If that makes sense. So let's continue.
Jiang was an active participant in his atrocities. As a key member of the Cultural Revolution group, she dragged China into a decade of chaos that killed up to 2 million people. She pursued spiteful vendettas, ordering the murders of people who had snubbed her decades before. At her 1980 trial, she famously described herself as Mao's attack dog, declaring, "Whomever he said to bite, I bit." But while Jiang Qing ended her life a revolutionary psychopath, she certainly didn't start it that way. As a young woman, Jiang had been a movie starlet. She had had affairs, appeared in tabloids, and engaged in behavior so scandalous the Communist Party wanted nothing to do with her. Yet somehow she rose...
Wait, so you're telling me that this chick was so bad that the CCP... Oh, nah, bro, this is this reminds me of how during World War II, what was that group that the German party didn't want nothing to do with? I think it was the Ustache or something like that. But I think it was in the Balkans. Their crimes were so bad that even the freaking the current German party, I don't want to say the word because I don't want to say that word in my videos, but the current German party were disgusted by them.
Rose to the top of that same party, ushering in an era of unparalleled chaos. Join us as we explore the life of Jiang Qing, the architect of the Cultural Revolution.
So I've heard of the Cultural Revolution, but I don't know too much about it.
With just the slightest tweaking, Jiang Qing's story could have been a Hollywood fairy tale. Born in March 1914, the girl grew up in heartbreaking poverty. Her mother was a concubine and her father a landowning drunk who seemed to be competing for the title most toxic purveyor of masculinity. He beat both women so frequently that the girl eventually snapped, and aged just 14, she ran away from home. It would...
No, I thought he was about to say she snapped and freaking kill him. I was about to say, hell yeah, what the heck? But okay, she ran away from home. But dude, why do I don't know if it's just me, but a lot of these historical figures, they always come from very poor backgrounds. Don't get me wrong, I know that there's a lot of figures who came from rich backgrounds, but a lot of these people, right, who end up doing the worst, I don't know, pretty bad crimes. I don't know if that's just a coincidence or not, but they always come from poor backgrounds, and it makes me wonder, right? I don't know, maybe just a theory. It could be a coincidence, but I don't know. I'm just gonna throw this theory out there, right? What if, because of the fact that they came from poor backgrounds, they came from bad upbringing, they weren't nurtured properly, that by the time they became grown adults, they're still suffering from that trauma from when they were kids. So by the time they became an adult, they turn into these very heinous, monstrous, barbaric type of people, right? I don't know, random theory. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Okay, if it sounds like a cool theory, I'm gonna throw it out there. And again, that's a theory, right? It's just a theory, right? You could make any theory, right? Theories aren't true, but it could be true, right? So you're gonna hear me saying a lot of theories in future videos if I feel like something deserves to be noteworthy of a theory.
Be thanks to this escape that the girl discovered her true love, acting. Incidentally, the girl wasn't called Qing yet. Over her life, she'd go by many names, and it's just by luck that Qing eventually stuck. Before she became Jiang, though, the girl would live a very different life. After a year with an acting troupe, the girl signed up with a brand new experimental arts academy in Shandong. Graduating in 1933, she headed straight for Shanghai.
So, funny enough, I went to an art school. Yes, I went to an art school in middle school, and I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. Oh my gosh. That experience is so bad. I think because of the fact that I went to that art school was the reason why I ended up hating going to school as much as I shouldn't have. And honestly, I feel like if I did go to like a much better school, my whole school experience would be so much different, bro. Because, dude, that whole art school thing is just so weird. And, you know, the kids were weird. I don't want to go into too much details about it. Maybe in another video, I don't know. But that was just,
It was almost the perfect time to be a 19-year-old actress in East Asia's Hollywood. Just a couple of years earlier, the nationalist Kuomintang under Chiang Kai-shek had reunited China after nearly 2 decades of warlord chaos. Now, with China in the throes of the Nanjing Decade, peace and prosperity had officially returned. Well, they had for some people at least. Shanghai in 1933 was deeply unequal. The rich were rich, the poor were destitute, and left-wing radicalism suffused the air.
of course. It's kind of like the system that we have in America today. Oh, actually, this system exists everywhere today. It's ridiculous. Oh my gosh, dude. Freaking, but it's really bad in America. America has the highest freaking wealth inequality in the developed world. That is ridiculous. Like, 80% of the wealth doesn't even go to the common folk. It's ridiculous. So this is just like America. This is literally just like America, bro. Right? I'm seeing all these people talking about, so, oh my God, I need to get to America. I need to get to America, bro. For what? I mean, I guess, you know, because compared to your, no offense, but compared to your dictatorship or backwater country, I guess America is like the holy land to you. But you know, when you're from a normal country such as myself, and you live here for long enough, you'll see the, like, yeah, this place is overrated as heck, bro. So this is just like America, really and truly. Let's continue.
Not that the girl noticed at first. She was too focused on living out her Shanghai dreams. Although Jiang's early years in the city were spent in minor acting groups, she was still beautiful and hedonistic enough to party with the rich.
That is not pretty. This is not pretty. What the heck? No, her face is bloated. I mean, I don't know if it's just because of the book, but this is not pretty, bro. This is, I don't know. This is the thing about history, though. Beauty standards have always changed throughout history. I was actually talking about this at my job the other day, about how freaking, like, beauty standards are kind of sort of a social construct, because, you know, there's just authentic attraction, right? You know, like, yeah, for a man, woman, in this case, we're talking about a woman. So usually, like, a chick that's authentically attractive, typically, you know, she has a proportional face, proportional body. She doesn't really, like, a lot of people think that, oh, she needs to have like big chests or a big behind. There are a lot of chicks with like super big, like overly too big up behinds, and like we all know what we're talking about, and that's not really attractive, right? So that's why I said proportional. Like, it has to be proportional, and the harmony needs to be there, right? And you need to be symmetrical as well, right? That's like authentic attraction. But beauty standards just take that authentic attraction and just like twist and turn it and just turn it into something completely different. And oh my gosh, that's a whole other thing for me to talk about. Anyways,
was too focused on living out her Shanghai dreams. Although Jiang's early years in the city were spent in minor acting groups, she was still beautiful and hedonistic enough to party with the rich and famous. She drank like a fish, got herself swept up in scandals, and chased her big break. She even was jailed for 3 months for having once dated a communist, but what did it matter really? This was all just part of her story, the tale of how one girl from a miserable background rose to become China's great greatest star. And Jiang's star really was rising. In 1934, she translated a breakout role in a Henrik Ibsen play into a contract to produce films with a left-wing company. She changed her name to Lan Ping, or Blue Apple, and prepared to embark on her fairy tale. But already the cold wind of reality.
How do people even know how to read Chinese? Like, I remember a long time ago, I was like watching this like language thing or whatever the heck it was. I remember a long time ago, I was like watching that, and freaking, I saw a Chinese person. The Chinese person was like, "Oh, be happy that yeah, Europeans have alphabets." And I'm like, "What the heck? Like, how does that work? Like, how do people freaking read like Chinese, like Mandarin, right?" I'm like, "What? I don't know, dude. That seems so freaking impossible." Like, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that Japanese people and Chinese people can communicate with each other. It's just that they use different alphabets, right? So, interesting.
Or Blue Apple, and prepared to embark on her fairy tale. But already the cold wind of reality was beginning to seep in. That same year, the communists fought a 6,000-kilometer retreat from Kuomintang forces known as the Long March, both the party's foundational myth and the event that made Mao its undisputed leader. It was the first sign of the radical change that would soon sweep China. Even Blue Apple noticed. In Shanghai, she began appearing in socially conscious films. Come 1936, Jiang was reveling in both her growing roles and her tabloid-ready love life. She had a melodramatic affair with a critic that ended with him trying to kill himself not once, but twice, her first proper celebrity scandal. But the trouble with fairy tales, even gaudy ones, is that they're not real. Jiang Qing may have been living a rags.
This is pretty. Again, I don't know if it's just because of the quality of the camera or what, but this is pretty. That is pretty. Okay, interesting.
Story, but it was exactly that. A story. One that would soon prove as fake as the stagey love scenes that she acted in. This was China in the 20th century, remember? Nobody, least of all Jiang Qing, was going to have a happy ending.
Of course. I mean, I was gonna say, this is 1934, right? Isn't this when Japan is about to go and invade China? Or was invading China.
The prosperity of the Nanjing Decade abruptly ended on July the 7th, 1937. That was the day a skirmish between Japanese and Chinese troops at the Marco Polo Bridge snowballed into a full-blown Japanese invasion. As the Second Sino-Japanese War erupted, Jiang fled to exposed Shanghai for the wartime capital of Chongqing. Good job too. Only a month after the Marco Polo Bridge incident, the Japanese marched on the port city, unleashing an orgy of violence. Yet this wouldn't be the only city Jiang Qing fled that year. In nationalist Chongqing, she became worried her socially conscious left-wing films would come back to haunt her. So she fled again, this time crossing into communist territory. And that was how she wound up meeting the man who transformed Chinese history. By 1937, Mao Zedong was in his mid-40s, and
Wait. Where did she go? Because, wait, was this when the Long March happened? When the communists should have been defeated, but somehow they miraculously survived? Or was this before the Long March happened?
securely in control of the communist movement. He was also showing classic signs of dictator egomania. When he spoke at Yan'an Arts Academy, he couldn't help but be flattered by the audience member with the movie starlet looks, the one who enthusiastically applauded his every word. The meeting after Mao's speech was the start of Jiang Qing's real rise. Not that it'd be easy or even particularly moral. At the time Jiang and Mao became lovers, Mao was still married to his third wife, He Zhen, a loyal revolutionary.
Whoa, third wife. Oh, okay, I see you, Mao Zedong. I didn't know you were like that, Mao Zedong. Wait. He's married to his third wife and he has a new... Oh my gosh, he has a new lover. Okay, Mao Zedong. I didn't know you were like that. Okay. I just thought you were just good at freaking, like, killing, like, tens of millions of people. Oh, like seriously though, freaking hell, third wife. The fact this man had three wives is freaking insane, dude. Freaking like Donald Trump.
Lovers, Mao was still married to his third wife, He Zizhen, a loyal revolutionary who'd been one of the few women to survive the Long March. So, she was so popular within the communist movement that the party tried to stop Mao seeing Jiang. But Mao was petulant, declaring, "Without Blue Apple, I cannot go on with the revolution." And long last, and only
that's a wild quote.
when Jiang was pregnant, was an agreement reached. Mao could marry the actress, but he had to promise that she would never try to enter politics. This was a big deal. The wives of most communist leaders had very public, very powerful roles within the party, not quite equal to their husbands, but not exactly stuck at home. But it seems the communist higher-ups could sense Jiang's burning ambition, her hunger for power that was almost equal to Mao's. So they made Mao promise, and unexpectedly, Mao kept that promise. He divorced He Zizhen and had her committed to a Russian mental hospital, then married Jiang and proceeded to push her back into the shadows. In no time at all, the sex had gone from their relationship.
Wow, what the heck? This is very uncanny. This is extremely uncanny. Okay. So if she wasn't allowed to get into politics, how in the world did she get into politics? We'll see.
Mao began checking up with young revolutionaries behind Jiang's back, although he never divorced her.
Oh my gosh, and he's still, oh my god, he's still raising up, oh my god, Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong. The communist razor. I don't know what nickname to give you. Freaking yo, Mao Zedong, holy crap, okay. I just learned something new today. Oh man, freaking Mao Zedong, freaking scream, freaking women left, right, center.
She was too loyal, too fawning, never answering back, worshipping him like a god. So Mao kept her, even as the Japanese were defeated, even as he turned on and destroyed the Kuomintang and became head of the People's Republic of China in October 1949. But little did Mao Zedong realize that his demure little wife was using him as ruthlessly as he used others. Sex is engaging in the first rounds, Qing later said of their relationship, but what sustains interest in the long run is power. Via her relationship with Mao Zedong,
so she was cooking, okay.
She'd soon amass enough power to transform the face of China forever.
Most people.
The trouble with rise and fall narratives is that life is rarely that simple. Rather than shooting to the top, most people just stumble upwards and then stumble back down. Such was the case with Qing, at least for the rise.
It's actually kind of true. Like, a lot of people, like, and it's wild to me because today, now, a lot of people are very, they're like, aware of this, but most people are gonna have, not even most, like literally vast majority of people are gonna end up dying kind of like garbage lives or just mediocre lives. Now you could argue that being mediocre is a bad thing, and it's not, but it depends on how you view that, like, because some people view being mediocre as bad, right? But I don't know. Most people, I guess in this sense, dying mediocre would be bad in this case because a lot of people try to strive for more, but in the end, they don't get that. Like, most businesses fail, most YouTube channels fail, like, most people don't end up getting into the NFL, football, basketball, other things. Like, a lot of things that a lot of people do, they fail. Like, most people fail at it, right? So you typically do end up becoming mediocre in a way, right? So, again, but being mediocre isn't a bad thing. It depends on how you view it.
Just stumble upwards and then stumble back down. Such was the case with Qing, at least for the rise part. Kept in the background by Mao and heavily medicated, it's likely Jiang in the 1950s didn't feel she was rising at all. Instead, it seems she mostly felt mentally unwell. She began to believe the colors pink and brown triggered migraines, that even the quietest house was filled with inescapable noise. Snubbed by leading communists, she belittled and shouted at everyone who came near her, yet refused to be left alone for even a minute. For those familiar with Mao's past marriage, it must have seemed like Qing was doomed to be shipped off to her own Russian asylum in the very near future. But But before you go feeling too sorry for her, we should probably take a quick look at what was happening in the rest of China. At the end of the 1950s, Mao's Great Leap Forward triggered probably the worst famine in human history, as villagers were corralled into communes and...
No, okay, so there's a huge debate about this, about the Great Leap Forward. Oh my gosh, dude, I don't really know. I never really took a side on the whole Great Leap Forward. So many people say that the Great Leap Forward did nothing but hold China back. Mao, his policies did nothing but hold China back. I heard some people say that the Great Leap Forward was necessary because it was needed to turn China into what it is today. I just never really like subscribed to any, because both sides have good arguments, right? But the real question is, could the deaths that happened during the Great Leap Forward, could they have been avoided? That's how I look at it, right? Could you have done that without avoiding all those dead people? I say the same thing about the Russian Revolution. I see so many people say, "Oh, the Russian Empire wouldn't be able to industrialize. They would have never industrialized." And I don't agree with that, because the Russian Empire was trying to industrialize. It's just that the Soviet Union came and just took the spotlight, right? So. And when the Soviet Union industrialized, they literally killed millions of people. So you could argue that, hey, was all those millions of people that died, was that really necessary, right? Let's continue.
Forced to meet impossible grain quotas. The historian Frank Dickiter estimates 45 million starved to death. For a grim comparison point, the total number of dead in the whole of World War I was around 20 million. So yeah, it probably comes...
Wait. How much was that? Hold on.
Estimates 45 million. End of the 1950s, Mao's Great Leap Forward triggered probably the worst famine in human history, as villagers were corralled into communes and forced to meet impossible grain quotas. The historian Frank Dickiter estimates 45 million starved to death. For a grim comparison point, the total number of dead in the whole of World War I was around 20 million. So
that was more than double the amount of people who died in World War I? What? Freaking double the amount from double the amount from starvation? Because World War One had like super high casualties, obviously, because there were like machine guns, they were automatic weapons, etc., etc. That's why World War One had like high casualties, and also because the commanders were dumb. But 45 million people dying from starvation. What the heck, man?
Estimates 45 million starved to death. For a grim comparison point, the total number of dead in the whole of World War I was around 20 million. So yeah, it probably kind of sucked to be Madame Mao locked away and snubbed by your husband's comrades, but it probably sucked significantly more to be dying in some frozen field. Yet, it would be the same famine that rescued Qing from obscurity. By 1962, it was obvious to even Mao that his Great Leap Forward had been more like the Great Leap into utter catastrophe. The atmosphere in the party was mutinous. There were open criticisms of Mao. Suddenly weakened, the channel needed as many...
Wow, that's a big deal, bruh. Openly criticizing? Oh, that's how you know you like... That's how you know you're doing bad, when people are openly criticizing you in your party.
Ultra-loyalists around so you could find, lest he be deposed. And who was more loyal than his darling wife? On September the 29th, 1962, over 20 years after they married, Mao introduced Qing to a party conference, bringing her into the limelight. Immediately, Jiang began amassing a power base. Latching on to Defense Minister Lin Piao, she had made herself the army's cultural commissar. From there, she engineered a drive to purify China's culture, purging playwrights and opera companies that failed to produce appropriately revolutionary works. At the height of her purge, she even managed to topple the Minister of Culture, a big scalp for someone so new to the game. But then again, Qing was a natural despot. Ever since her actress days, she had excelled at holding a grudge, and now, given free rein to attack the cultural sector, she had set about harassing as many detractors as she could get away with. She'd even stuck the knife...
Bro, she is going in! Immediately going in! Yo, dude, when he started listing like all the things that she started doing, like I couldn't even say anything because I was too busy processing everything that he was saying.
into
Holy
her
crap,
husband.
man.
One of the revolutionary plays she approved involved an elderly tyrant with a beautiful young wife he fails to satisfy and then kills. Mao apparently watched the Beijing performance looking like someone had just force-fed him a sack full of lemons. But rather than turn on his newly insolent wife, Jiang's spirited purge seems to have given Mao a bit of an idea. By 1965, there were dangerous rumblings that the failure of the Great Leap Forward could topple the chairman. So Mao survived the only way he knew how, not by setting traps and ruthlessly purging like Stalin would, but by creating so much chaos, his rule would come to be seen as the one steady rock that the nation could cling to. He called his new project the Cultural Revolution, which sent China spiraling into new depths of madness.
The Cultural Revolution. The Cultural Revolution is very interesting to me because I don't know how to feel about it. I guess from the communist perspective, it did achieve what it wanted, but from like a normal perspective, it was horrible. Monsters and demons.
February 1965, Qing found herself returning to Shanghai on Mao's orders for the first time in years. Although she'd needled him with the play, Jiang was always fanatically loyal to her husband. When he told her to go back to the city of her acting days, she didn't think twice. Once in Shanghai, Jiang hooked up with the party's local director of propaganda, Jiang Chunquao, and the acerbic writer Yao Wenyan. Together, they would form 3/4 of China's notorious Gang of Four. But that was in the future. For now, the Gang of Not Quite Four focused on setting up
who are those people? I never heard of those people. Gang of Four, what the heck?
a secret rival to Beijing's Ministry of Culture, just in time for Mao to purge the real thing. Mao had already chosen the cultural sphere as the next battleground. He just needed someone to first clear the decks of the party's old guard. Jiang Qing happily obliged. In February 1966, a Shanghai unit launched a broadside against the last guardians of culture, labeling them a black force trying to dominate our politics. Right on cue, the targets were denounced and purged, leaving the Shanghai unit at the forefront of propaganda. It was the start of a steady drumbeat towards anarchy. The pace first picked up in May when the People's Daily, a party mouthpiece, exhorted students to turn against cultural traitors. It gained speed when students in the cities responded.
No, wait a minute. Okay, hold on. I just clocked this. Okay, yeah. If I remember correctly, because I remember I learned about the Cultural Revolution a long time ago. Like back in like school, it wasn't like too much details, but I think the Cultural Revolution was basically like when everyone was like freaking, they started accusing each other of like being a traitor or something like that. It was wild. That's why I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying anything because I'm trying to remember what this was about. I'm trying to process everything that I'm seeing right now. But I think it was something like that. Like everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that person is committing treason," something like that. Some we'll see.
By painting the first big character posters, sheets as big as a door sprayed with revolutionary calls to arms and denunciations. Finally, it reached a gallop when Mao made his move. On May the 16th, Mao organized a secret memo targeting bourgeoisie who had sneaked into the Communist Party, the government, the army, and various spheres of culture. Shortly thereafter, the Cultural Revolution Group was born. Consisting of Jiang Qing and her gang of 4-1, plus some ultra-loyalists, the group was allowed to operate outside of checks and balances. From their offices near the Forbidden City, they controlled propaganda, the means of communication, the machinery of state. It was essentially a coup, one which kept Mao in charge, but ripped power away from anyone under him who wasn't named Jiang Qing. And Madame Mao was determined to use her newfound power to make her husband proud. The opening salvo came on June the 1st. That day, the Cultural Revolution Group issued an article in the People's Daily calling on students to sweep away all monsters and demons. It singled out teachers.
Bro. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. At this point, you're just mindlessly like getting rid of random people. Like what the heck?
And schoolmasters claiming they corrupted the youth with reactionary thoughts. That same evening, big character posters put up by Beijing students denouncing their teachers were read out live on radio. The next day, all schools were suspended. It was the opening of the floodgates. Rather than stay home, the nation's teenagers swarmed their schools where party cadres handed out paper and paint. Big character posters began appearing in every classroom, upbraiding teachers and fellow students. But what to do with those who had been denounced? The answer.
So the teenagers are doing this. Where are the adults? What in the world? What are the adults doing? These are teenagers, bro. Freaking fly keeps flying around. Freaking hell, man. Go away. Freaking fly. But what are the adults doing here? I'm like watching this, and I'm like, what? What? Because most teenagers are dumb. Let's be real. Very easy to be manipulated and whatnot. But like, what are the adults doing?
Came on June the 13th. That day, at a televised mass trial in Beijing, images were broadcast of counter-revolutionaries forced to confess their sins and submit before a screaming crowd of thousands. Even girls as young as 6 were filmed shrieking, "Kill, kill." The template of the revolution had, at last, been set. Now was the time for the carnage to begin.
Wait, and you're telling me that these people, right? These people, they were just so docile to this, they don't remember about Chiang Kai-shek. Then again, I heard that Chiang Kai-shek wasn't really any better, and that Chiang Kai-shek, he was kind of dumb. And because of his stupidity, when the Japanese were invading China, that the people ended up supporting the communists. So I'm not really surprised.
That summer, 1966, China slipped into a hellish fever dream. Across June and July, the nation's students went full Lord of the Flies. Denounced teachers were forced to wear dunce caps or made to crawl through school with signs saying "dog" hanging around their necks. By the middle of the month.
Bro, what is so wrong with the teachers, bro? The teachers are just doing their job. Can't the teachers just quit? I don't understand. What is so wrong with them? Like, usually when a new system comes, you just make them teach that, right? Or you just replace them. Oh my gosh, this fly is so freaking annoying. But typically, you just simply, I don't know, I guess it's because, I guess they're a relic from Chiang Kai-shek days, I guess. I don't know, dude. It's like, what other professions is he gonna target? Or is he even gonna target any? I don't know, dude. This just the fact that he's only targeting teachers. I expected other people like lawyers and whatnot to be targeted, but I guess teachers are bad. I don't know. Is it because he wants to brainwash the kids? I think he wants to brainwash the kids, because usually how these dictators work is, they brainwash the kids so that when the kids grow up, they'll be freshly brainwashed, and the older generation, which can't be brainwashed, are going to be dead anyways by the time that happens. So then it'll be much more easier to just keep the process going. I don't know. That's just what I think. I'm just trying to rationalize this right now.
Students had graduated to torture, forcing principals to kneel on broken glass for hours at a time. On June 16th, Chairman Mao swam across the Yangtze River to show he was ready for ideological battle. He dismantled the work team's future premier, Deng Xiaoping, had sent into schools to try and calm the situation. By late July, the first deaths from suicide from overzealous torture had been reported. But Mao responded simply by painting his own big character poster, declaring "bombard the headquarters." Shortly after, big character posters swept out of schools and across Beijing, covering every available surface. It became vital to study them every day to see if you'd been denounced. But the real terror started on August the 8th. That day, just 3 days after a gang of teenage girls had publicly beaten their vice principal to death, the Cultural Revolution group announced—
What? Beating their vice principal to death?
16 new articles. The articles encouraged students to destroy the 4 olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. And most importantly, they declared that no action would be taken against students who engaged in violence, no matter what they did. And just like that, open season had been declared. August is infamous today for how quickly it devolved into anarchy. Teenagers, most of them barely 14 or 15, self-organized into Red Guard units that imprisoned teachers and fellow students and killed them in grotesque ways. People had boiling water poured over them. Others were stoned to death. In elementary schools, children—
Bro. Teenagers are doing this? Like I said, we're the adults. What the freak, bro? Teenagers are stoning people to what the heck, bro? I don't even know what to say to this. I don't know. I'm honestly baffled by this. I'm just wow. This is actually like baffling.
Of only 10 or 12 forced their teachers to swallow nails. Soon the violence
What,
was
bro? Swallow what, dude? Swallowing nails? How worse can this get? How worse can
streets as teenage Red Guards began attacking the homes of anyone who looked counter-revolutionary. Not long after, lists of targets prepared by the Cultural Revolution group started appearing on walls, adding to the violence. By late September, nearly 2,000 people had been murdered in Beijing alone. But for Qing, life was a non-stop party. As Mao used the chaos to shore up his own position, Jiang used it to settle scores. In January of 1967, her group overthrew the local Communist Party in Shanghai, triggering a wave of uprisings as Red Guards seized weapons from the army and turned cities into war zones. At last, united with the last member of her Gang of Four, the labor activist Wang Hongwen, Jiang became the face of the chaos gripping China. She appeared on posters, made speeches to tens of thousands, had books dedicated to her. In charge of cultural output, she banned all but 8 operas and wrote exacting rules on how everything from music to theatre to novels should be created. She then set about using these rules to target all of those.
Oh boy, the beauty of communism. Is this even communism, bro? Is this really I don't look, bro. I don't want to sound cliche, but I've heard some people say that, communism has truly never been tried before. And that's a valid argument. I'm not gonna lie, bro. But I know before somebody goes and types something like, actually, communism is bad because it always devolves into something else that's not so good. Like, yeah, I know. But I'm just saying, like, saying that communism has truly never been tried before is still not wrong to say. So, I mean, you could, I don't know, depending on how you look at capitalism, you could kind of say the same thing about capitalism. Like, America today, I don't call America today capitalist. I just call America today corporate. It's corporatism, not capitalism, right? That's why everything sucks to live in today, because all the corporations are passing bills and laws that are benefiting them, not us, the common folk.
Rules on how everything from music to theatre to novels should be created. She then set about using these rules to target all of those she felt had personally wronged her. Actor Zhao Dan, who'd refused to appear opposite her on stage in the 1930s, was hounded and tortured. A scriptwriter named Jiang was denounced because he hadn't wanted to write Jiang apart decades before. A co-star named Li Yu, who got better reviews for a 1936 film she and Jiang appeared in, was arrested and her whole family tortured. Husband died from the ordeal.
What the heck? Nah, bro, I'm a petty person, but this level of petty, actually, you know what? I think I would be, and I can't even say that because I'm not really in a position of power, but maybe I would be like that. I'm not even gonna lie, bro.
Nor did Jiang stop at artists. The children of senior communists who'd snubbed her after her marriage to Mao were murdered. The future premier, Deng Xiaoping, was denounced twice and his son crippled by torture. Even today's Chinese president Xi Jinping saw his father arrested and humiliated during the upheaval. The worst part? Jiang Qing and the Cultural Revolution group were just getting started.
Oh, they're just getting, oh my gosh.
There's a growing
In 1967, Mao wrote to Jiang Qing telling her the goal of the revolution was great disorder under heaven that would later inspire greater order under heaven. The chairman certainly got the first part right. A full account of all the crimes committed would probably require us starting a whole new channel called Cultural Revolution Graphics and uploading daily videos for the next 5 years. But we can give you an overview so you can understand how it must have felt to be alive at that time. The biggest flavor of the period was a mix of insanity and extreme cruelty. In Beijing, Red Guard units declared cats were symbols of bourgeoisie decadence and set about conducting a great cat massacre in which thousands of strays were tortured and killed. Out in the villages of Wuxuan, human bad elements were vivisected alive, their internal organs eaten by local party bosses. In Daojian, villagers used the chaos to settle old scores, butchering the babies of enemies for having a bad class background. Often, this chaos was utterly self-defeating. In Wuhan, so many doctors would denounce
Butchered the babies of enemies, bro. Look, I know I'm not saying anything, but there's just he's saying so much that I'm trying to like process everything right now. This is so wild. This is just so wild to think about. And not even just wild. No, wild isn't the proper word to describe this. This is just pure barbarian, right? This happened in the 60s, my dude. In the 60s, bro. Right, like back then, this is like stuff that I'm like used to hearing, because right now I'm like doing my Julius Caesar, like BC, BC era, ancient times. This is stuff that I'm used to hearing back in like ancient times, bro. This is like modern times. I'm just thinking to myself, people are still like this today. Wow. Okay. Well. Wow.
Announced that the healthcare system collapsed. In Jiang, the transport networks fell apart so spectacularly that famine set in. Millions were reduced to eating mud and bark to survive. And then there were the suicides. Being denounced in the Cultural Revolution didn't
I know bark is edible, but mud is edible? Mud is edible?
always mean being killed, but it did mean losing your job, being paraded through the streets, spat on by your neighbors, and humiliated in front of thousands in struggle sessions. Not surprisingly, many killed themselves in the wake of this. In Hubei, 600 people committed suicide in just 6 weeks. Overall, it's thought that anywhere between 500,000 and 2 million died in the Cultural Revolution, with millions more tortured by self-appointed teenage revolutionaries. By its end, the education...
And that's the thing that got me about all of this. This is literally the teenagers doing this. This is literally all teenagers committing all these murders, bro. That is so surreal to think about.
Disintegrated. 20% of the population was suffering from malnutrition. Productivity had collapsed. The economy was a ruin. But it achieved its goal. Mao Zedong was still in power and stronger than ever. Sadly for Qing, though, her survival wasn't so clear-cut. In 1968, Mao began to worry that his wife was getting too powerful. He started telling people she had great aspirations, but not an ounce of talent. Shortly after the military moved
Oh, violation.
cities to restore order, Red Guards were disarmed and sent by the millions to the countryside to learn from the peasants. In reality, this meant 12 million teenagers essentially becoming slaves, forced to do back-breaking labor thousands of kilometers from home. Yet luck would ensure that Qing wasn't thrown to the wolves alongside them. As the anarchic phase of the Cultural Revolution wound down, the now aging Mao anointed the general Lin Biao as his heir apparent. But when Lin was killed in a plane crash, it was Qing and her gang of 4 that filled the vacuum. Still completely in control of culture and propaganda, Jiang was now on a crazy high. With no one left to replace Mao, it really looks like she might become China's next leader. By 1974, she was even comparing herself to the legendary Wu Zitan, the only empress to directly rule imperial China. Sadly for Blue Apple, though, fate had other plans. Rather than being the thing that ensured her survival, the Cultural Revolution would ensure Qing's downfall.
The irony.
I never thought that the shirt I wore...
Did I? Okay. I had to make sure that the video was still
in the end,
going.
Qing was outplayed by one man, Deng Xiaoping. Purged and rehabilitated under Mao and then purged twice by the Cultural Revolution group, Deng finally...
So this was purged 3 times and he still came out... Wow, okay.
...in public life in 1975. By now, Jiang was basically waiting for 2 powerful old men to die, her husband and the popular premier Zhao Enlai. When Zhao obligingly kicked the bucket on January the 8th, 1976, Jiang swiftly purged his allies, ridding herself of the last challengers to her power. She forbid public mourning of Zhao, and when Deng Xiaoping made a stirring speech in the premier's memory, she had him purged for the 9 millionth time. But crafty Deng had realized...
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, this guy This guy has been purged and he hasn't been killed.
Something that Madame Mao was too arrogant to see. The Gang of Four were hated by the military and the party. Their power lay in their ability to whip up the mob to get the people on their side. The same people who had loved Premier Zhao. The same Premier Zhao whose memory Jiang had just pissed all over by arresting Deng for honoring him. On March the 31st,
yeah, she bit more than she could chew. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Protesters appeared in Tiananmen Square crying, "Jiang the witch." As she watched through binoculars, Blue Apple had them attacked and beaten with iron bars. They scattered into the night. But the damage had been done. Jiang had now attacked both the people's premier and the people themselves. Never again would the Gang of Four be able to unleash anarchy on the streets. In one fell swoop, Jiang had destroyed one of the two things keeping her alive. The other vanished shortly thereafter. On September the 9th, 1976, Mao Zedong died at the age of 82. Less than a month later, a Politburo meeting.
Oh boy. Yep. She's gone. I already know how this is going to end.
Called. There, the three present members of the Gang of Four were arrested. Paranoid to the end, Jiang Qing had wisely stayed away, but she was quickly tracked down and arrested by a military who were now looking for revenge. As if to underscore how low opinion of the Gang of Four had fallen, news of their downfall caused such big celebrations that Beijing ran out of alcohol. 4 years later, with Deng Xiaoping now...
Oh my gosh, dude, because when this whole thing was going on, I was just sitting here watching this, like, surely, like, so many people have to hate this lady, bro. Like, there's no way she could be doing all this and, like, no one would not be, like, freaking hating her, bro.
Now not just rehabilitated, but in charge of the country, their trial began. Deng's problem was that someone needed to draw the line under the excesses of the Mao era, as Khrushchev had done with Stalin in his secret speech. But Mao was both the party's Stalin and its Lenin, its source of legitimacy for ruling China. Denounce Mao and the whole edifice would come crashing down. Deng's response was masterful. While admitting Mao had made mistakes, the formula he had landed on was that 70% of the stuff the chairman did was good and 30% was bad. Doing this, Deng shifted nearly all the blame for the many atrocities onto Blue Apple. At her show trial, Jiang was blamed for the entire Cultural Revolution. While she fought back, telling the assembled communists, "If I am guilty, how about you all?" it wasn't called a show trial for nothing. In early 1981, Jiang Qing was sentenced to death, commuted to life in prison. She was dragged from the court, screaming, "Traitors! Fascists!" But her time was over. A decade later, in May of
Well, good riddance.
1991, Jiang was reported to have hung herself in her cell. Supposedly, she left a note declaring, "Chairman, I love you. Your student and comrade is coming to see you." Today, Jiang Qing's name remains mud in China, while Deng Xiaoping is hailed as the man who saved the economy, and her husband is still lionized as a great leader, despite the whole 30% thing. Jiang is associated only with the nightmare of the Cultural Revolution. Certainly, she deserves this. Jiang was a monster, a vindictive sociopath.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, honestly, that downfall was honestly, like, well deserved, bro. Like, I mean, she didn't even do anything good. It's like, it's just that's why I'm not really, like, saying anything. It's just like, bro, she did nothing but bad. I can't even defend this.
Who helped engineer the chaos that killed maybe 2 million people. And yet, it's worth remembering that she wasn't acting alone. Without Mao's desperate need to cling to power, the Cultural Revolution could have never happened, no matter how vicious Jiang was. Madame Mao was the architect of a catastrophe, yes, but it was all in service of her husband, a man modern China still officially deifies, even while admitting he made mistakes. In the end, Jiang may not have got her fairy tale ending, but her thuggish
made mistakes. Yeah, she was used as a scapegoat, literally. You know, she was literally just used as a scapegoat. There's no other way to put that.
husband got something like it, at least where his reputation was concerned. Sadly, in her death, as in her life, it seems that the troubled young actress was only ever destined to play a supporting role. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did,
It's a very interesting video on Jiang Qing that person wants me to react to. You know, you made it all the way to the end, you know, so that means you probably like what I have to say. If you like what I have to say, man, make sure you subscribe. And don't forget to like the video so that YouTube keeps recommending my content on the algorithm. Oh, very, very intriguing video. I mean, if you have anything that you want me to react to, just comment it in the comments below. I'm like blowing through all my suggestions right now because I have a few that's been stacked up, right? You know, so I'm like, okay, yeah, now I'm actually gonna start like blowing through it now. Although I didn't really want to do that yet. Some of the suggestions have been so long that I'm just like, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna do it, right? So, yeah, man. Thanks for watching.